Okay, lipids are also called hydrocarbons, and the reason why is that when we look at the structure, you'll see that carbons are going to form long chains, and they will always be surrounded by hydrogens. So when we look at the elements that are involved in hydrocarbons or lipids, they are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Now the monomer, it consists of two parts, but it is still called a monomer. The first part is called the glycerol molecule, and this is going to be a 3-carbon molecule with 3 oxygens coming off of each of the carbons, and then the rest of it is all hydrogens. So this portion right here is called the glycerol molecule. Then coming off of each of the carbons in the glycerol molecule, you will have what we call fatty acids, so 3 of them. And this is going to be a carbon that is double bonded to an oxygen, which is what we call a ketone. And then you will also have this long chain of carbons that are, again, surrounded by all hydrogens, okay? Especially here you can see that these are carbons that are going to be single bonded to hydrogens, so they form a straight line. But if you notice, you'll see that this carbon is actually going to be double bonded to another carbon. And this gives it kind of like a little bend in the chain. So anytime that there is a double bond between the carbons, you will see that it's going to look kind of bent. Now, because we have all of these hydrocarbons, and carbon and hydrogen do share their electrons completely equally, there isn't a distinct charge between either one. So we say that they are non-polar. In water, they do not dissolve because the water is going to be a polar molecule, which means that the hydrogens on the water molecule are going to give away more of their electron to the oxygen than normal, and it would give the oxygen more of a slightly negative charge, and it gives the hydrogen slightly positive charges, which is what we call polar. We talked about it in class today. And so these molecules, because they are nonpolar, they do not dissolve in water, we call them hydrophobic. Phobia is a fear. Hydrogen, or hydro, is going to be the water. So this is fear of water, which means that they do not dissolve. So, when we look at just the fatty acid chain, that's the part on the right from the previous slide, you will see that they are saturated or unsaturated. Now, the first two on the last slide were going to be hydrocarbon chains that were completely straight, which means that they didn't have any double bonds in them. This means that the fatty acid is going to be saturated with hydrogens, okay? Because if you look at this double bond, all right, that means that if there's 2 bonds, you had to take away a hydrogen from this carbon and a hydrogen from that carbon. So it is unsaturated, meaning that there isn't the max amount of hydrogens possible because of that double bond. So what really truly is the difference? Okay, the difference is in the double bonds, but it also makes the lipids look different. Okay, saturated versus unsaturated are going to be a lot different. So if they are saturated, that means that they have lots and lots of hydrogens. They're more solid at room temperature, meaning that this kink right here, this bend in the molecule because of the double bond, causes the molecule to not be so clustered together. And that causes it to look liquid at room temperature. So if you have lots and lots of double bonds, or it's unsaturated fat, they're going to be liquid at room temperature, which is good for your heart, and it's good for your blood vessels because then the fat doesn't actually get stuck. Okay, it's things like butter, Crisco, fat that is found in your body that is going to be bad for you because it's saturated with hydrogens and therefore is more clumped together, and that means that it's going to form a solid at room temperature, which means that in your body it's harder for it to get through your blood vessels in your heart, and it clogs up your pores. I'm sorry, not your pores, your heart. Now, if we look at fat versus carbs, because remember they're both energy sources, fats are going to be your long-term energy storage. That means that they are going to be the backup energy source just in case you use up all your carbs. And the reason why is that you can get more energy per gram of fat than you can of sugar. So we use up the less efficient one first, and then we will come around to the more efficient one, which is fat. So today in class we talked about, I did a demonstration for you guys over the reason why we use cell membranes as lipids versus carbohydrates. And the reason why is that they can form a protective barrier against water more than carbs can, because they don't dissolve in water. So parts of the functions, all right, fats and oils are going to be long-term energy storage. Right, people who have lots and lots of fat are more insulated, which means that they are going to hold in heat better, so it's for heat protection and insulation. It is also to physically protect your organs from physical shock, which is a good thing. Some fat is very good. It aligns all of your internal organs to make sure that if they were to get hit or physically hit, then they wouldn't be damaged as much. Okay, and the last thing that we didn't really go over in class are steroids. Okay, all hormones are going to be fat-based. Okay, and this will become important when we talk about the human body systems. Okay, they are also, the last slide said waxes. Okay, they're also for waterproofing, and that's why plants will have a waxy cuticle, which means that they have wax on their leaves to help protect them from water loss. So, like we said, saturated fatty acids are going to be more solid at room temperature. This is the type of energy that we use to store, that we use for storage in animals, okay? And that's things like butter. Body fat is actually a good thing. Some body fat in small amounts is okay. All right, it helps to store energy, it helps to insulate, and it helps to protect your organs, okay? Any excess energy, which means that any of the carbs that you didn't use for that day, get converted into fat as a storage facility for other things if you were to need it later. Oils, okay, especially those that are going to be coconut oil and vegetable oil and olive oil, are said to be more healthy alternatives to butter because of the fact that they are unsaturated, meaning that they have those double bonds that causes the bend, which means that they're not as crammed together, and they're going to be liquid at room temperature, which is a very good thing because that means that they are more likely to flow through your body instead of clogging up your heart and blood vessels. Now, this modified triglyceride, okay, is called a phospholipid, and this is what your cell membranes are made out of. Instead of having the 3 normal fatty acids that we looked at, the third fatty acid is going to be replaced by a phosphate molecule, which is just a phosphate with some other stuff on it, okay? Now, this causes the entire molecule to have parts that are nonpolar, which would be the fatty acids, and a part that is polar, because phosphate is actually very charged. So now you have, instead of having a completely nonpolar molecule like you do with oils, this phospholipid actually is going to have a part that is polar, which is the phosphate part, and 2 fatty acids that are nonpolar. Okay, and you still have the glycerol background right here. Okay, right here. Now this makes it very, very well structured to become the cell membrane. And the reason why is that your cells are going to be surrounded on both sides by water. So you would like to have a part that is going to like being near the water, and you would like to have a part that is not going to be near the water, that doesn't like to be near the water. So this part right here, which is the phosphate part, is going to be the hydrophilic, meaning that it likes water. This part, which is the tail, is going to be the hydrophobic part. And they are going to stack in 2 layers, okay, which is what we call a phospholipid bilayer, because there's 2 of them. This part right here, this egg-shaped thing, is going to be the hydrophilic head, or the phosphate part. And you can see that they are stacked tail to tail, because this part likes water, and this part likes water, which is good because there's water on the inside of the cell and there's water on the outside of the cell. And this part right here does not like water, and so they will be protected by the hydrophilic heads, and they will stack end to end. Okay? And this is what makes it such a great structure for the cell membrane, because you have parts that will interact with the water and you have parts that will not. And so it keeps water from being able to flow freely in and out of the cell and other charged molecules, because they must first be able to make it through the hydrophilic head, but then they also have to be able to make it through the hydrophobic tails, okay? One of the other functions that we didn't really talk about is the fact that all of your nerve cells are going to be insulated with fat called myelin. It's a phospholipid that insulates all of your nerve cells to make sure that the electricity that's running through your body that you generate doesn't electrocute you and make you dead. Now, there is such thing as cholesterol, and I know you guys have heard of this before. Okay, cholesterol is going to be a molecule that is actually very good for you in small amounts, just like everything else. It's this four-ringed structure right here with all this stuff coming off of it, and cholesterol is going to be the basis for all hormones. Hormones are going to be things that help you to become reproductively capable. They're going to help you with development. They also help you with your mood swings. They help you with maintaining your glucose levels, maintaining your water levels. Everything that we have to do to maintain homeostasis requires some sort of hormone, and every single one of those hormones is made out of cholesterol. It's a cholesterol base. It is also going to be embedded within this phospholipid bilayer. This right here is the cell membrane, and it helps to add to the integrity of the cell membrane so that it doesn't break as easily. Okay, so hormones are chemical messengers. They're found throughout the body. They're produced by glands, and they're secreted by these glands as well. And they help to control your growth, development, tissue function, sexual function, the way our bodies use food. Okay, if you're lacking some hormones, you may not be able to break down food as easily. Okay, they also help you with the reaction of your bodies to emergencies. For instance, your adrenal gland is going to produce adrenaline, which you need in the fight or flight mechanism. And they also control your mood, and that is why when you are a teenager, your hormone levels have not quite leveled out the way they're supposed to be, and so you go through these stages of mood swings. Okay, estrogen and testosterone, which are the hormones that are going to help you with sexual development, are two very good examples. Okay, and like I said, steroids are going to be derived from cholesterol. Now the last one is waxes. Okay, these are going to be lipids that are used to repel water. We put wax on our cars, okay, to make sure that the rain beads up. We put waxes on our leather jackets to make sure that they make them water resistant, and they're also found on the surface of leaves. Okay, a lot of animals will actually make waxes to help keep their hair pliable as well. Okay, for instance, the feathers of water birds help them to make sure that water doesn't leak into their body and make them waterlogged. And here are your vocabulary words that you need to know for this section.